Breaking news from He and She News. EverChem has proposed to use butanol as the new energy storing compound. Let's have our reporter on site for more details. Good day, sir. Can you share more about the new energy proposal?
Yeah, so gasoline was our first choice as the energy storing compound, but it was already patented by EverChem company. So we need to find another compound to store energy, and our team has came up with the idea of using butanol.
I see. Can you briefly share on how it works, sir?
My pleasure. Based on the first law of thermodynamics, energy can neither be destroyed or created, but it can only be transformed from one form to another. Hence, when butanol is produced in our energy storage system plant ESS, it is stored as chemical energy, and when needed, it is burned to produce electrical energy for the residential village. This can provide support to the daily life of villagers, such as having online classes, cooking, and etc.
Wow, that's good to hear. May I know what are the main problems faced during the planning of using butanol as the energy storing compound?
Absolutely. Besides identifying a compound as a substitute for octane, we also need to plan and execute a unique process based on butanol.
Wow. I know that this project is aiming to benefit the community around Toronto, so may you share on the potentials that can be reached from this project?
Sure. Through the process of producing and storing butanol as the chemical source of energy, we are able to use it as a fuel to burn and produce electricity. Besides that, by conducting thermodynamics and kinetics analysis to produce butanol, a more efficient method can be introduced. Lastly, our environment is our home, and a target net zero carbon footprint through this unique process proposed is also our objective.
Thanks, sir. This is Edmund from He and She News signing out.
Based on my past experience, octane is widely used by the most of the company in storing electrical energy in form of chemical energy. What makes your company different from those company patterns of octane usage?
Okay, since octane gasoline is already been modeled by other companies, our business developed butanol as its replacement.
Why did you choose butanol as the substituted compound of chemical energy storage?
As we all know, butanol has a lower value of volatility since it has a greater flash point than octane gasoline. The first advantage of butanol is that it is less likely to have cavitation and metal lock problem, which are issues brought on by the fuel becoming gases at certain temperature and lowering pressure while still being in the fuel delivery system. Additionally, using butanol at a higher temperature is much more safer.
Awesome! I totally agree with your ideas of focusing on the benefits before deciding to choose butanol. It will definitely convince the industry players to adopt your ideas. For further inquiry, isn't the octoination temperatures lower than gasoline?
Contrary to popular belief, it actually has a greater outer emission temperature than octane gasoline, which is 285 degrees Celsius. We pick butanol over other types of alcohol because it burns much more easily with less energy required, especially in colder areas and under load situation.
Apart from butanol having the lower octoination temperature, why do you think that butanol is a better chemical compound than octane?
Okay, butanol has a higher viscosity rating than octane gasoline does. When a sensitive fuel pump is employed in combustion, this characteristic shields against the potential wear, issues, and lubricity. As for the distribution process, butanol makes it even more simpler because unlike methanol and ethanol, it can use the existing pipelines. This is due to butanol's low solubility in water compared to the two other compounds stated. This makes butanol management less demanding in the event of accident when the fuel is tainted with water.
Is there still other reasons to solidify the fact that the butanol is up against octane?
Yes, there are other factors to solidify the fact, which are when butanol is compared to ethanol and methanol, it actually has a greater value of lower heating value, which means that when it is burned, more energy will be released. That makes butanol an even best option for energy storage, despite the fact that it is cost 22% lesser than octane gasoline does. But this is a best option that we have in the markets today. In the end, to really complete everything, butanol production and combustion are much more eco-friendly compared to other materials. Thank you.
Alright, moving on to the unique process of butanol production. Firstly, the solar power plant located in the desert will be our main source of electrical energy for the operation of the biomass process station, carbon dioxide production plant, and the sodium carbonate conversion center, all three located in the desert for necessary production.
In the biomass process station, waste collected from the village will be utilized to produce hydrogen gas through a process called biomass gasification. This process is done without having to undergo combustion as it only implies a controlled process involving heat, steam, and oxygen in the biomass conversion.
As for carbon dioxide gas production, we have two sources which are from the atmosphere in the desert, harvested by the carbon dioxide gas production plant, and from the recycled carbon dioxide gas emissions from the fuel power plant in the village, which are being converted into carbon dioxide gas at the sodium carbonate conversion center.
Having all the needed gases, the factory located in the desert will produce butanol by supplying the carbon dioxide gas and hydrogen gas produced to the cultured bacterium known as the Ralstonia eutropha. Then, once all the energy has been converted and stored in butanol, the compound will be transported to the fuel power plant in the village using pipelines where the combustion of butanol is done to generate electricity.
Lastly, as an act of sustainability and eco-friendliness, in the same power plant in the desert, the carbon dioxide gas released from the combustion of butanol will be recollected by the nearby carbon dioxide gas capture tower and will be converted into sodium carbonate solid to ease the transportation back to the sodium carbonate conversion center in the desert.
In fact, the concept of recycling is demonstrated and can be studied in the whole unit process.
Hi, I'm Professor Tze Hin. Now, let me explain what are the factors that affect the rate of formation of butanol. Firstly, temperature factor. If it is peak hours of electricity, we can increase the temperature of reactor so that the kinetic energy of CO2 and H2 gas molecules is higher. As a result, they are more energetic enough to overcome the activation energy. Thus, the effective collision increases and more butanol can be produced to generate the electricity. On the contrary, during off-peak hours, reactions should take place under lower temperature to slow down the conversion of heat energy to chemical energy. The second factor is concentration of reactants. If there is high electricity demand, high concentration of CO2 and H2 gas is used in order to speed up the rates of formation of butanol. However, when the electrical consumption rate is low, less concentrated CO2 and H2 gas is used in order to limit the production of butanol. Thirdly, presence of catalyst factor. Do you know that Ralstonia eutropha bacteria can be a catalyst in the reaction? The bacteria can provide alternative pathway for the reaction, thus lowers the activation energy barrier. Therefore, the number of effective collision increases, and finally, rate of reaction is higher. Lastly, the pressure of gases factor. If the pressure of gases CO2 and H2 in the reactor is increased, there are more reactant molecules for a given volume. So there will be more effective collisions and production rate can be optimized.
The thermochemical analysis part will be predicting the spontaneity of each of the reaction based on free Gibbs energy. Firstly, in the reaction of formation of butanol, since the reaction is an exothermic reaction, delta H will be negative. Delta S will be negative as the number of gas molecules decreases from 18 moles to 7 moles of gas, which results in a decrease of entropy of the system. From the equation, delta G is predicted to be negative plus positive, which means the reaction will be spontaneous depending on the temperature. At low temperature, the magnitude of negative delta S will be lesser, making the reaction to be less positive. Thus, the reaction will be spontaneous at low temperature, and vice versa, where the temperature is higher, the magnitude of negative delta S will increase and be more positive. Thus, the reaction will be non-spontaneous at higher temperature. Next, for the combustion of butanol, this reaction is also an exothermic reaction, so the delta H will be negative. Meanwhile, as we can see, the increased number of gas molecules results in positive of delta S as entropy increases. From the equation, delta G is concluded to be always negative, which means the combustion reaction is always spontaneous at any temperature. However, the magnitude of spontaneity of combustion reaction can be different if we manipulate the temperature. If the temperature is increased, the magnitude of negative delta S will increase, which makes the reaction to be more spontaneous at higher temperature, and in contrast, the reaction will be less spontaneous at lower temperature. The release of large amount of heat energy from the combustion of butanol will cause thermal pollution. So, in order to reduce the thermal pollution, we are using man-made pond method where the heat release will be transferred through a discharge of water to the pond. The man-made pond will be constructed nearby the combustion plant and it will be equipped by environmental friendly air conditioning system for cooling purpose. This method is not only a budget method to reduce thermal pollution but also can serve as a recreational purpose for the villagers.
There are three limitations of thermodynamics. Firstly, thermodynamics reaction will naturally occur only in one direction based on the spontaneity of the reaction at a given temperature. In thermodynamics, the reaction can't be reversed without outside intervention. Next, it is difficult to predict the rate of reaction in advance, as thermodynamic reaction doesn't depend on the speed which is stated in the law of kinetics. The spontaneity of the reaction process has nothing to do with the speed of reaction. Lastly, the stoichiometric equation for the reaction doesn't indicate anything on the thermodynamics of the reaction. The contradiction between the law of thermodynamics and the law of kinetics can be proven based on the Arrhenius equation. In that equation, it states that the rate of reaction increases as the temperature increases. Hence, the frequency of effective collision also increases. However, the thermodynamic and the spontaneity of the reaction is based on the Gibbs free energy formula, which states that the delta S is positive when the entropy increases with increasing temperature, making the negative T delta S more positive and delta G also become more positive. When the delta G is more positive, the reaction is less spontaneous. So basically, the law of thermodynamics and the law of kinetics contradicts, where in thermodynamics, the reaction is more spontaneous with lower temperature, while in kinetics, the reaction is more spontaneous with higher temperature.
Greetings, Dr. Kuhan. Congratulations on your recent promotion. I heard that the EverChem project a few years back is going greatly. Can you share us on its details?
Through research of thermodynamics and kinetics, we are able to maximize the production of butanol using Ralstonia eutropha and also minimize the net carbon release. Since the combustion of butanol is spontaneous, it is favorable in all temperature.
Last question, Dr. Kuhan. Can you describe this project in a sentence?
It is a dream come true for the team, as this project greatly benefited the community. Thank you and have a nice day.
You too, sir. This is Edmund from He and She News. Peace.